Hi guys, today I'll be teaching you chapter 1 of the Income Tax Act 1962. But before proceeding to the video, please subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon for more interesting videos and comment in the comment section for any queries. So hello guys, today we'll be learning Income Tax chapter 1, the basic concepts. So the overview of this lesson is given in this chart. The first part is components of components of income tax law. So basically, there are five components: Income Tax Act 1961, Annual Finance Act, Income Tax Rules, Circulars and Notifications, Legal Decisions. Another part is steps for computation of total income and tax liability. There are 9 steps here. First step is to determine the residential status. Second step is to classify under which head of income it will come. Then computation of income under each head. Then clubbing of income of a spouse or minor. Then set off or carry forward losses. Computation of gross total income, deductions from gross total income, computation of total income, computation of tax liability. These are the 9 steps. Then we'll see the important definitions of assessee, assessment, person, income, India, assessment year, previous year, maximum marginal rate and average rate. Then we'll see the basis charge of rates and taxes, that is charge of income tax, rates of income tax. So what is tax? Tax is considered as a cost of living in a society. Now direct tax. Direct tax is a tax. If the tax is levied on directly on the income or wealth of a person, then it is called as direct tax. If the tax is levied on the price of the good or service, then it is indirect tax. In normal sense, in the direct tax, the incidence and impact is on the same person. But in indirect tax, the incidence and impact is on the other person. Why taxes are levied? So taxes is a revenue for the government, so that the revenue which is raised from the tax will be used for the purpose of education, healthcare, infrastructure, etc. So Article 265 says that no tax will be levied or collected by except the authority of law. So except the law, no one can collect the tax, collect or levy the tax. Whether direct tax or indirect tax, central government and state government has the power to levy and collect the taxes. Now, parliament and state legislatures are empowered to make the laws. Regarding to the 7th schedule by virtue of 246 article 246 of Constitution of India. Now, 7th schedule to article 246 contains 3 lists, that is union list, state list, concurrent list. In union list, parliament has the exclusive power. In state list, the legislatures of state will have the power. In concurrent list, both parliament and legislatures will have the power. So income tax is the most important tax, most significant tax from the entry 82 of the union list. So, list 1 of the 7th schedule of Article 246 gives the power to make laws on taxes of income other than the agricultural income. The next part which we are going to see is overview of income tax and the components of the income tax law. Income Tax Act, Annual Finance Act, Income Tax Rules, Circulars or Notification, Legal Decision of Courts, or it is also called as Judicial Decision. So, Income Tax Act 1961 came into force on 1st April 1962. It is having 298 sections and 14 schedules. Now, a section may have subsection or clause, and clauses may have subclauses. Further, you will get rule and the subrule. These are the examples of clauses. Now, provisos and explanations. proviso to subsection. Proviso may be either for section, subsection, or clause. What it tells the exceptions to the provisions. Exceptions regarding to this will be told in provisos. Now explanation gives the clarification regarding to the above provision. So for example, if this is a section, it gives the proviso will gives the exceptions for this section, and the exceptions will be given a clarity explanation in the explanation provided. So income tax law is a revenue law. It undergoes changes every year with additions, deletions, which is brought by the Annual Finance Act, which is passed by the Parliament. So how this Finance Act is passed? How the bill is passed? First, every year, Finance Minister of India will produce the financial bill in the Parliament session. So when the bill is passed by the two houses of the Parliament, after it is passing, if the majority, then it gets the assent of the President. Then it becomes as a Finance Act. Amendments are made to every year for the Income Tax Act by the Finance Act. This Finance Act consists of four parts. Part 1 is which specifies the tax rates for the current assessment year. Part 2 says the TDS rates for the current financial year. Then part 3 says rates for deducting the tax from head salaries. Part 4 gives the rules for computing the net agricultural income. The administration of direct taxes will be looked after by CBDT, Central Board of Direct Tax. So it is also empowered to make rules for the purpose of this act, and it can frame rules with the administration with the guidance of the Income Tax Act 1962. So as I said, rules may also have sub rules. For the sub rules, provisions and explanations can also be there. Along with the act, we also should study the income tax rules. What are circulars? Circulars are issued by CBDT to clarify certain doubts or to clarify certain meaning of a certain provision which is already given. Circulars are issued for the guidance of the officers or assessees. It may not be applicable to all the assessees, only the assessees who can take benefit or advantage of the circulars can take the advantage. Case laws. So case laws refers to decision which is given by the court. So this is very important, and any decision which is given by the court, Supreme Court, will apply to all the assessees. So for this inter level, we are not having case laws. At final level, we will be having it. How income tax is levied? See, income tax is levied on the income earned in the previous year, and the income year earned in the previous year shall be taxed in the next the assessment year. Person also includes individual, HUF, association of persons, body of individuals, a firm or company, etc. So all these definitions we will study later in this chapter. Just for the meaning sake, they have given here. See, tax is levied on the total income as computed as per the Income Tax Act 1961. So there are 9 steps as I said before. So we have completed components of income tax law, the 5 components. Now we are stepping into the steps for computation of total income and tax liability. So this comprises of 9 steps. So we'll see that in detail. First is determination of residential status. Determination of residential status is whether he is a resident. If he is a resident, is he a resident and ordinarily resident, or he is resident but not ordinarily resident, or he is a non-resident? So this has to be determined. This is the first step in calculating the total income. So this we'll study in further lessons. But 182 days, a person who resides 2 days in this year, all such things will be there. So while using that, we'll calculate whether he is a resident and not ordinary resident or non-resident. Next, we have to classify the income which which is which came to us in the different heads. So basically, there are 5 heads of income: income from salary, income from house property, income from profits, income from profits and gains from business or profession, capital gains, and income from other sources. So these are the 5 heads of income, and we have to classify which income is under which head of the income. After classify this, we'll calculate the income earned under the head separately. For example, income which is earned under the pension salary will be under the head salaries. If you are earning rental income from the house, then it is called as income from house property. If you are earning any profits from the business or profession you are carrying on, then it will be PGBP. If you sell any of the asset, the sale of the asset will be a capital gain. So profit from the capital gain. Then other sources such as lottery, gambling, all such things. Now computation of the income under each head. As we classified the income from all the heads, we'll compute the income which is earned under the each head. So in this head there will be some exceptions or some deductions. So based on this, we'll compute income under each head. Example: exemptions is given in section 10 of this act. Agricultural income is exempt in the purview of the income tax. Then deductions. So while calculating house property, you'll get deduction under section 24, or while calculating salaries, you'll get deduction section under section 16. So each head will be having different deduction sections and different charging sections. Based on that, we'll compute the income which is earned under the each heads. Now clubbing of the income of spouse, minor, child, etc. If the spouse is earning income, or if the child is earning the income but child is not supposed to file the income tax return because of the age, and he or she will be a minor, so all those income shall be clubbed with the income of the parent. Suppose a child is earning income and it exceeds the exceeding limit of 2,50,000. The child's income should be clubbed with his or her parent who is having the more income. Suppose if father is earning more than mother, then it should be clubbed with the father. Okay, so that is how we'll club the income of spouse or minor. Next is set off or carry forward losses. So the assessee may incur profits under one head and losses from another head. So to set off that, one head's profit will be used to set off the another head's loss. Like, let it be the loss under the same head or under the different heads. If he is having loss in the textile business, he can claim it, or he can set off the profit of the another business which is carrying on. But there are some restrictions regarding the deducting of one head's profit or setting off one head's profit to another head's losses. So in further classes we will study that. Next is computation of the gross total income. After calculating the income from each head and clubbing the income of spouses, and if any, set off the losses or carry forward losses, then we'll compute the gross total income. Final figures of all the heads of income will be aggregated, then we'll arrive at the gross total income. So we can deduct some amounts from the gross total income. So what are those incomes? What are those amounts? It may be regarding payments, certain payments. It may be in respect of certain incomes, or deductions in respect of other incomes or other deductions. So deductions in respect of certain payments. Payment of LIC premium is deductible. Contribution to PF is deductible. Pension fund, medical insurance premium, payment of interest which is taken for higher education, then interest which payment of interest which is taken for residential houses, then any purchase of electrical vehicle, then rent paid, donation to certain charitable institutions or an electoral trust or political parties. Then regarding some incomes, so employment of new employees, royalty income other than textbooks, then royalty on patents, all such income can be kept as a deduction. Other income, this is of certain income, this is of the other income. Interest on savings account, interest on deposits in case of senior citizens. So other deductions will be, in the case of disability, the person will get another benefit. All such things you will calculate, you will deduct here after calculating the gross total income. So after that we'll come under total income. After the deductions from the gross total income, the next will arrive at the total income. Example, 16th, if the total income is 16,333, then we'll round off it to nearest most 10th digit. So 33 will be nearer to 30. So we'll round off like that. That is possible in case of the Income Tax Act. So this is a brief chart how we'll compute the total income. First we'll determine the residential status, then we'll classify the income under 5 heads, that is income from salary, income from house property, PGBP, capital gain, income from other sources. Then we'll compute income under each head with the provisions which is applicable to those heads. Then apply clubbing provisions if anyone is earning, that is a spouse or a minor child, etc. Then if any set off or carry forward losses, deduct that. Then compute the gross total income. From the gross total income, if any deductions from the gross total income, deduct all such things and we'll arrive at the total income. This is the procedure of getting the total income. Then by seeing the total income, we'll apply the tax which is payable on the total income. That is up to 2,50,000. If the total income is there, then the tax rate will be nil. From 2,50,000 to 5 lakh, it is 5%. That is how you have to calculate this. So 2,50,000 minus 5 lakh will be 2,50,000. So on the 2,50,000 you have to calculate it 5%. That will be a tax rate, and not on the 5 lakhs you should not calculate, because in this 5 lakhs up to 2,50,000 it is nil. So from 2,50,000 till 5 lakhs will be 5%. So you have to deduct 5 lakh 5 lakh with 2,50,000. Then 2 lakh, on the 2,50,000 you have to apply the 5%. That will come to 12,500. So that will be the tax liability. Then from 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, 20%. Then above the 10 lakhs is 30%. This is for the normal age, normal youth age, and this is for the normal citizen. For senior citizen and very super senior citizen, the rates will differ. Next is you next is if you have to apply the surcharge or rebate. See, rebate is basically if your income is below the 5 lakhs, 5 lakhs and below, 5 lakhs and below, you will get a rebate. That is a discount. Rebate means discount of 12,500 or the income whichever is lesser. So if your income is total income is 5 lakhs and you will get a rebate of 12,500 or the income whichever is lesser. So obviously 12,500. So up to 5 lakhs, if you are having a total income of 5 lakhs, then obviously your total income tax liability will be your tax liability will be nil. Why? Because on the 5 lakhs minus 2 lakh 50,000 will be 5 lakhs minus 2 lakh 50,000 will be 2 lakh 50,000. On 2 lakh 50,000, if you do 5%, 12,500 will come. So that 12,500 will be deducted by the rebate under section 87A. So and your tax liability will be nil. So surcharge is an additional tax which is payable on the income. If your income is less than 50 lakhs, 50 lakhs and less, then there will be no surcharge, no additional tax you have to pay. If it is 5 lakh 1 rupees or on or equal to 1 crore and less, then you have to pay 10% of the 10% of your total income as surcharge. If your income is more than 1 crore but less or equal to 2 crores, then 15%. If your income is more than 2 crores but less or equal to 5 crores, then 25% of the income tax. If your income is more than 5 crores, then 37% of the income tax. You have to pay it as a surcharge. Surcharge is an additional charge. So rebate I have already told you. So, if you are applying for rebate under section 87A, you have to do it before the health and education cess. So, after rebate under section 87, you have to do the health and education cess on the income tax. On the tax which is paid, you have to do it 4% on the total income which you have calculated, or after total income after deducting the rebate and adding the surcharge, you have to add the cess. Cess is tax on tax basically. Then 4% you have to do it on that. Then advance tax. If you have paid any advance tax or already the tax is deducted source, then you have to give such information and you can take the benefit of that. Like you can deduct the tax which you have already paid in the advance, or if the advance tax which you have paid is more than what you have calculated, you can get the refund of the amount which is in excess. Or if it is less than what is your total income, you have to pay the excess amount to the income tax department. Advance tax can be paid on 15th June, 15th September, 15th December and 15th March. However, if the residents are using the for the presumptive taxation, he uh, he or she or the assessee can pay on or before of the 15th March instead of the four installments. So as I said, you will, after deducting all such things, you will arrive under you will arrive to tax payable or refundable. So such amount will be again rounded off to the nearest multiple of the 10. So for the return, you have to file the income tax return as mentioned, as notified by the CBDT. So you have to file your income tax returns and get the claim if you need. And but it is mandatory for all the assessees. If your income is more than 2,50,000, you have to compulsorily file your income tax returns. Now we have completed the steps for computation of the total income. Now we'll see the important definitions. So, Section 2 gives the definitions of this act. The first definition is assessee. Section 2, subsection 7. Assessee means a person by whom any tax or any other sum is payable under this act. In addition, it includes. See, it is an inclusive definition and exhaustive and inclusive definition. It is saying that a person who should pay the tax or any other sum, let it be an interest penalty or such any such income, any such expense which he has to pay to the income tax act, he is called as a assessee. Whether or not he is earning the income which is more than the exemption limit, he will be an assessee if he is paying any other interest. So, in respect of every person has been taken for the assessment of the taken as an assessee if his income or income from any other person in respect of which he is assessable, like in the case of a minor, he is assessable for filing the returns. So, or he is liable to pay the tax. So at that time he'll be called as an assessee. Any loss sustained by him or such other person, if any of the loss which is suffered by the person is also called as assessee, and any refund which is from the refund which is given by the income tax act to the person also be called as an assessee. An assessee who is deemed to be an assessee will also be an assessee. Deemed to be an assessee is a parent to a child will be as a deemed assessee. So, and next thing is assessee in default. If the assessee will become as a assessee due to default of any of the law, then also he will be as assessee. Then also he'll be called as an assessee. So this is section 2 subsection 7. Then is assessment. Section 2 subsection 8. This is the procedure by which income of an assessee is determined by the assessing officer. It may be by way of normal assessment or by the way of reassessment of an income previously assessed. See, assessment is not only the assessment means actually calculating or to find out, assess, find out. So, it is not only the assessment is not only the procedure by calculating or finding out the income of which assessee is determined to pay. It is also the reassessment. That is, the previously filed tax returns can also be reassessed, like recalculated. So that is also called as the assessment. Then person section 2 subsection 31. So assessee will leads to the definition of the person. So if they ask who is assessee, then the person definition will come into picture. So the person is every person or every important point of view. The charge of income tax is on every person. Whoever pays the income tax will be the person. Now, who will all pay the tax? Individual, HUF, company, firm, AOP or BOI, local authority, artificial juridical person. Now, individual. Individual means only a natural person, that is, human being, includes both female and males. Then, individual means a natural person, that is, human being. It includes both male and female. It also includes a minor. It also includes a person who is of unsound mind, and but the assessment of both will be made on the guardian. In the case of any deceased person, assessment will be made on the legal representatives. Next is HUF. HUF is a HUF is a Hindu undivided family. So it is also treated as a separate entity for the purpose of assessment. It is also included in a section under section 231 as a person. Then HUF is not divided. HUF is not defined under Income Tax Act, but defined under the Hindu law as a family which consists of all the males descended from the common ancestors and includes their wives and daughters. The members of HUF are also called as co-partners. The members are also called as co-partners. They are related to each other, to the head of the family, and head of the family is called as karta. So earlier a daughter will not, is not considered as a was not considered as co-partners, but after with the effect from 6 September 2005, daughters are also been accorded with the co-partner status. So as we see in the contract will be of the two persons or two or more persons, but in HF it is not like that. One male member or one female member will be enough to call them as a co-partners. So under Income Tax Act 1961, Jain undivided families and Sikh undivided families will be assessed as HUF. So they are having schools of Hindula. Both are having separate one. Dayabag School and Mitakarsha School. So Dayabag School it is in West Bengal and Assam, and Mitakarsha School is rest of in India except these states. So what is the basic difference between these? So Dayabag School is only in West Bengal and Assam. Mitakarsha School is prevalent in rest of India other than the West Bengal and Assam. So no one will acquire the right of the share as long as the head is alive. Here everyone acquires the right of the share by birth itself, even if the elder or head of the family is living or is alive. So in Dayabag School, the children will not acquire any right or share in the family until his father is alive. Only after the father's death, the children will acquire the right or share in the property. So here the father and his brothers will be the co-partners of the HUF. But in Mitakarsha school, every child which is born acquires the right or share in the family or property. Now as company. Company is defined in section 2 subsection 17. Company may be an Indian company referred as section 2 subsection 26. Then any body corporate incorporated by any other laws outside the country, that is outside India, that is normally called as foreign country. Then any body or association which was assessable or which was assessed before the Income Tax Act as an Indian company will be taken into the purview of the company, meaning of the company. So any institution or association, whether it is incorporated or not, which is declared to be as a company by the CBDT, will be a company. Now there are classes of companies. First is domestic company. Section 2 subsection 22A tells that it means an Indian company or any other company which in respect of its income liable to income tax has made the prescribed arrangements for declaration and payments of dividends including dividends on preference shares within India payable out of such income. That is, if the company is situated in India and giving dividends to its shareholders, then that company is called as domestic company under section 2 subsection 22A. Company will be called as a domestic company. Next is Indian company. Section 2 subsection 26 says that as an Indian company there are two conditions to be an Indian company. One is it should have been the company should have been formed registered under the Companies Act 1956, and it should also have the registered office in India. So also Indian company includes any corporation whether it is a central or state or provincial act, will also be called as an company, or any institution which is declared to be board uh, declared by the board to be as a company. Then any company which is formed and registered under any law relating to the Companies Act, which was in force or in any part of India. In case of Jammu and Kashmir, any company which is formed under the time being in force also called as the company. In case of Union Territories, then any company which is formed under the law of force, which is law for being in force for that time, is also called as the company. Next is foreign company, which is section 2 subsection 23 clause A. Foreign company means a company which is not a domestic company. That's all. Firm is defined under section 2 subsection 23 and includes a firm, a partner or partnership which is having the same meaning in the Indian Partnership Act 1932, that having limited liability partnership has been declared under the Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008, will be called as a firm. However, if the minor is earning or getting the benefit from the partnership firm, he is also be treated as a partner. Then a partnership is the relation between between the persons who have agreed to share the profits of business carried on by all or acting for all. The persons who have entered into a partnership with another are called individually partners and collectively firm. So individually they are called as partners and collectively they are called as a firm. Next is association of persons. Persons who join together for the promotion of a business entity is also called as AOP. But in order to say them as an association person, AOP, they should have the common purpose or common goal for uh, constituting the business enterprise. Then BOI, body of individuals. Body of individuals is are those type of persons who will be like executors or trustees who receive the income jointly, and they'll also be accessible in the manner as the AOPs or the beneficiaries who are benefited individually. So the income tax on pay which is payable by the assessee in respect of the share of the income from the body of individuals will not be taken into consideration. Here for the BOI, the share of the assessee's income shall be taxable in the hands of BOI. Again, individually, the assessee is not liable to pay the tax. Next is local authority. Local authority means a municipal committee, a district board, body of port commissioner or other authority legally entitled to entrust by the government with control or management of municipal or local fund. If the authorities who are present in the local and they are carrying any of the business activities, and the income earned from them is also will also be accessible, and they are also included in the person section 2 subsection 31. Then artificial juridical person, any person, so this is a type of person who is not falling in the above category, will be called as an artificial juridical person. Example, god, idol will be called as an artificial juridical person. So that's all for this video, and we'll continue the next part in the next session. I hope you guys have enjoyed my video. Please like my video, share my video, comment for more videos which you want, so that I'll be posting and I'll be clarifying your doubts. If any it is, please mention in the comment section. Please subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon for more notifications. Thanks guys.